Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Colton. I'm your technical specialist covering Maximo. And today we're going to be covering a demonstration on setting up locations and asset hierarchies, starting at the site level within Maximo. We'll cover really three things today, and today's quick demonstration. We'll start off with a high-level overview of Maximo's data structures. We'll cover best practices for setting up your environment, and then lastly, a demonstration. So starting with Maximo's data structures, Maximo has data objects that reside at four different levels within Maximo. You have your system, which essentially associates to a single instance of a database within Maximo. Individuals with access at the system level, this is where you would typically configure security groups, users, people, PMs, master PMs, meters, escalation, service requests. That's not the complete list, but this is typically where that functionality resides. As we go down the hierarchy, the next is setting up your item sets that can be used across organizations. So when we think of, and this is typically called the item or set level within Maximo, and this is where you can set your item masters, item specifications, tools that will be leveraged over multiple organizations. The next level, and think of each of these as legal entities within your company, is these organizations. And this is where functionality like craft rates, failure codes, shifts, labor qualifications, this is typically where those will reside. And lastly, within this hierarchy, you're going to have location and assets. And this is where a lot of clients typically spend a lot of time and standardizing how they set up their hierarchies within their location and asset hierarchies within Maximo. So the second component of this demonstration is really walking you through some of the best practices that we see with a lot of clients. And we're seeing this more and more, but clients are leveraging ISO 14224 standards, which is essentially a 9-level base standard for setting up locations and assets within your CMMS systems. And it was initially created for oil and gas, but has been widely adopted really across all industries, at least the ones that I've been working with, like manufacturing, life science customers. I see a lot of energy and utilities. They're all adopting these best practices, and essentially it's 9 levels. Five of them are going to be dedicated to setting up your locations. Four of them would be setting up your equipment and assets. And the reason why we keep it at 9 levels is really a couple reasons. The practicality of it, just making it manageable for organizations to implement and use. Having too many levels can, within your hierarchy, can overly complex and be challenging to maintain. There's an aspect of it that is really data standardization. We typically see this, especially when you integrate data from OSI Pi systems into Maximo. You're going to want to have a very similar structure so that integration is typically pretty seamless. And all around, it ensures consistency and facilitating easier data exchange and between between different systems. There's an aspect of it where it's just compatibility. So keeping that hierarchy with 9 levels ensures, database may not have that have limitations, maybe in setting up their hierarchical structures, make sure that those systems can be supported. And then lastly, just for performance and efficiency, just making sure that your systems are efficient as possible. So, there may be Maximo can go well beyond 9. I'm not saying Maximo can't go beyond 9 levels or under 9 levels. That's just typically best practices that we're going to show today. And even within the standards itself, you sometimes will see companies that want to go more or less. Now, let's go ahead and drill into the ISO standards that we see here. Here, I just took a pharmaceutical use case to define within Maximo today, part of this demonstration. For the demo, I've already configured the first 4 within Maximo, and what we're going to do for the demonstration is configure the 5th and then begin configuring our equipment subdivision or our asset higher the last 4 that are dedicated to defining asset structures for this particular site. So as I mentioned before, organizations can have multiple sites. We're going to be using the example of a Devon site for this demonstration. So let's hop over to Maximo to do this demonstration. As I mentioned before, we have a system or a hierarchy of locations that I have created for this Devon site. Devon sites can be that primary location with sub-locations, a part of this hierarchy that we see here. So Devon's being the site, and then we're going to have pharmaceutical manufacturing, production, packaging, uh, main manufacturing facility, packaging unit, and then conveyor system for packaging. So conveyor system for packaging is the last location that we need to define in this hierarchy. And if we drill into this location and click on open drill down, you're going to be able to quickly see the path to the top that we have standardized for this. And this is going to look very similar to the structure that we have here. And what we're missing here is essentially another location for the conveyor system. I'm going to show you how to set this up in a second. So these are our current operating locations that we have currently today. There's different types of locations that you can create, such as a labor location, holding location, maybe for inventory, vendor location, if you have a external vendor that handles maybe your items, equipment. So there's a lot of different types that you can configure within Maximo, but for the purpose of this demonstration, we're just going to keep it as operating. As I scroll down, you're going to see Devon's is the main site within this hierarchy that we've set. So you're not going to see it have any parents, but you are going to see it have children. And here we have pharmaceutical manufacturing as a child location for our Devon site. Let's go ahead and go back and show you what it takes to create a new location. So here we have our conveyor system and packaging. We may want to name it the same within our location ID and give it a type of operating. Once this is done, you can configure more information. It's typically best practice to give it a failure class, a general ledger account. But as we scroll down, we're going to first, for creating this location, we want to tell Maximo, okay, which hierarchy is it a part of? And so for this example, it's going to be the primary hierarchy for our Devon site. So here we can just click that, click OK. And we're going to associate the system for the Devon site to this location. So we're essentially telling Maximo, okay, what is the primary hierarchy that this location is a part of? And here it flagged and said, hey, we already have a parent location, which is the that you're going to have to assign this location to. And if we go back to look at our hierarchy, we're going to want to set that as the packaging unit location. So here, we're just going to go ahead and select the value, look for a packaging unit, and click OK. And so now, if we were to save and open the drill down, you're going to see that this is now a part of that five-tiered asset hierarchy or location hierarchy. So you have pharmaceutical manufacturing, production, main manufacturing, packaging unit, and your conveyor system and packaging. Now that we've created and finalized our, go ahead and click cancel. Let's go ahead and add assets to this location. So here we're going to be able to associate assets to this location. If we go back to our asset hierarchy, we're going to start with the main packaging line conveyor. So the next thing we're going to want to do is start off by creating an asset. So if we click on assets, we can click enter and see that within our default site, and that's configured if you go to default information or Devon site, we don't have any assets yet. So we're creating this from scratch. Let's go ahead and create a conveyor, our main package line conveyor. And once we're done creating this asset, we're going to want to associate it to a location. And as we scroll down, this is where we would be able to define that. Now, if we go back to our hierarchy, we see this is going to be part of that conveyor system and packaging. So let's go ahead and find that. We're going to click this and click save. Once that's done, if we go back to that location that we looked at earlier, we saw that there weren't any assets. So let's go ahead, go to location, click on assets, and there you go. This asset was now added to that location within the hierarchy. So if we were to drill to the path to the top, we're going to go ahead and see that hierarchy has been defined. Now, there's going to be children assets of this conveyor, main package line conveyor. You're going to want to also add sub-assemblies. You're going to also want to add subunits and parts to the equipment. So for example, you're going to want to add a subunit, a drive motor unit, very similar to how we did within the locations. You're going to go back to that asset, click OK, and go to assets. And that should bring us directly to that asset. You're going to then begin to add, for example, subassemblies, which is where you're going to create a new asset to be a part of this hierarchy. And to show you an example of this, let's go ahead and go back and just create a new asset. You can create it here too, but I just want to show you just a similar way to how we created the connection between assets and locations. So do you want to save? Let's just go ahead and say no, and let's create the next tier of assets within this hierarchy, and that's the drive motor unit. So here we're going to set that up, give it a name, drive motor. Go ahead and click save. The status is not ready, but as part of this, we're going to go ahead and let's try this one more time. Let's call it drive motor 001. We're going to tell it which parent it is a part of, and that's our main packaging line conveyor. And it's going to automatically populate the location as well. Once we hit save, we should see that added to the drill down. So let's go ahead and open it. As always, click on show path to the top, and there you go. And we're going to add, and I will save you the time of adding the rest of the hierarchy. I'll leave that up to you all to do on your own, but this is essentially what it would look like within Maximo. And again, this is just a great way to standardize within your company how you set up assets and your site hierarchy within Maximo. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or feel free to email me. I'll leave my email in the link to this video. But with that, thank you for watching. We covered the best practices for setting up the Maximo hierarchy, the Maximo data structures, and how to follow ISO 14222 standards. So thanks again, and look forward to future videos.